All right. Today we're going to be making some felt wallets. I got the inspiration from TikTok. I'm going to link the TikToks that I got, like the accounts that I got the idea from down below. I'm probably going to make 3 to 4 wallets. For these wallets, I designed them in my notebook and start out with making some paper templates for them. I use these templates for all the wallets that I made, despite them turning out uneven in the end, but that's alright. I'm using a mix of hard felt and soft felt, which I got from the Dollar Tree or Walmart for either package. And I'm starting off with making the first wallet, which I end up going for a lesbian color palette with, and I'm just cutting that to shape. With the backing one, you're going to want to make it like double the size, that way you can just fold it over. I found that helped out a lot. And then I'm just making a paper template for the frog because I don't trust myself to freehand a frog. So I'm just cutting that out and then cutting it out of the pink felt that I'm using for that. For this, I did make some purely out of the soft felt, which we will see later in this video. However, I really do recommend using hard felt for all of like the wallet structure because it does make them a lot more like wallet-like, and I do prefer how the one with the stiff felt turned out feeling-wise anyways. And here I am just picking out some buttons. These I also got from the Dollar Tree, and I ended up going with a hot pink thread for this one. I didn't have any embroidery thread, so I ended up using sewing thread for all of this. And after I get the thread unknotted after a while, I finally start sewing. This took me a while because it was just like a lot of undoing knots and stuff. If I used embroidery thread, and I recommend you use embroidery thread as well, you'll have a lot easier time because of the thickness of it. Whereas when sewing thread gets knotted up, it's just so much harder to get unknotted compared to embroidery thread. I will live and learn from my experiences. I'm going to buy embroidery thread for my next project that I'm doing sewing. I didn't use any fancy like stitching for this. I just really did simple back and forth stitches. I did do, I believe they're called blanket stitches around the edges, but I am not sure. I am self-taught with sewing, so it's just a guessing game. And that's what this channel is. I honestly didn't learn much things professionally, nor most things I didn't learn from school. I just taught myself, so that's part of the fun of this art channel because I'm just a girl. And right now I'm just sewing on the frog, and having the wallet fully separated to do this front piece, which is the most decorative, just made it a lot easier for me. But it still did give me a bunch of issues, but we're going to ignore the backs. And then I'm taking some black thread to do the frog, just to give it a little bit more dimension compared to the rest of the decorativeness on the front. And if I used embroidery thread, I feel like I would have liked my usage of using pink thread a lot more, but it's very hard to see with the thickness of the sewing thread. Take a shot every time I say thread. That'd be a fun game. I did cheat a little bit. I used Sharpie for some of the details on the frog because I was not about to go through and do a bunch of embroidery stitching, especially with how much trouble my needle ended up giving me. But there is the frog before I start sewing up the sides, and I just like kind of layered them together and then pinned them with another sewing needle. And then I folded over that top piece, and the little loop I kind of stuck in between the second layer and the backing, but like if you turn it over, like it's like kind of stuck in between the backing, so that way it's not shown on the back. Oh my gosh, I need to find synonyms. That's my goal for this year, synonyms. Alright, so I'm just sewing this together. It's not gonna be clean because I'm really lazy and I hate sewing. which is really funny considering I am planning to do a lot of sewing projects. Like, I am planning to use a bunch of my scrap fabric to make plush stars. I want to make some messenger bags / purses. I want to do some thrift like up flips and all that. You should see my notebook. It's that pink one that's sitting right beside the very bad camera angle. Oh, I didn't explain why this is not in my office. Okay, so usually I would be filming these at my office on my desk, but the day that I filmed this, it was a very bad pain day for me. Like, I was legitimately bedridden. I could not get out of bed. So, but here is the first wallet. And then I lost the footage for me cutting out the pieces for the other two, but I made one based on Twilight Sparkle and one based on Tuxedo Sam. But I was basically bedridden just because I am disabled. I have a degenerative disc disease is the easiest way to explain it. So on some days, if I move too much the day before, I will get bedridden basically. But here I am just sewing together the Twilight front piece. I used a purple, a more pinkish purple, and then a hot pink for hers, as well as some white accents. And I just put sparkles, buttons, patches, and then a thing of her cutie mark. But here's that piece half sewn, and then I'm just going to continue on with that. I ended up using a lavender thread for hers, just to try to bring in her main coat color, just because I don't have a felt that color, unfortunately, and I didn't really want to go out and buy anything, so I made do with what I had. And I just continue sewing that together with some messy stitches. It honestly started getting more messy as I went on, unfortunately, because I don't learn from my mistakes. And when I get to the one for Tuxedo Sam, you'll definitely see that. Unfortunately, his turned out to be my least favorite just because of how messy the stitching was, but that is purely my fault. I wish I would have taken more time, especially with the last two. The first one I spent 2 hours on, and then the second two I busted out in 45-ish minutes each at most. So I just really need to take my time with things, and that's me learning and growing, and that's what this channel is for. This channel is for me to document my art processes and to see what I can improve upon. So very fun, very funky, very vibes, And I'm just still sewing the front of the cutie mark because, oh my god, it is very repetitive. But I apologize for the camera angle. I realize for a lot of this I am literally not even sewing in frame, and that is my own bad, but so right now I'm just pinning the Twilight one together with another sewing needle because I refuse to use pins, and I just start sewing that together with I still think it's called a blanket stitch. I'm not sure though, so don't take my word for it. But I'm just doing that, going through and making a bunch of knots because it kept the thread kept snapping because it would get into knots and then I would get frustrated. So yeah, but I'm just doing that and going up, and then I did I'm stitching along the top right now just so it has a decorative feel, if that makes sense. But again, I did get this inspiration from two TikTokers that executed it 1,000,000 times better than me, and I am going to leave their @s on TikTok down below. So I beg you, please, 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 please go check out their videos. They have amazing tutorials for these. I didn't see them until after, I winged this, but they have amazing tutorials, and their wallets are just so gorgeous, and they execute it way better and probably have 1,000,000 times better patience than I do. But here I am just starting on the Tuxedo Sam one. I am using a yellow thread for this one just to bring in a color other than red and blue. And I'm just going through so many issues with this thread today because it doesn't like me very much. And The Tuxedo Sam one's the simplest because it only has 4 pieces that need to be sewn onto it besides the pieces for the main wallet. So it's pretty straightforward. The only difference is that I put the buttons on the second level instead of on the first level like I did with the first one. Because, you know, his eyes are above his belly and his belly is the white part. So you kind of gotta make do. I want to make a Miku wallet to match my cosplay I'm doing at a con, but I'm probably going to include that in my Miku video I'm going to make, or maybe like a con vlog. I don't know. I've decided what I'm going to do for the Comic-Con, but I'm sure I will post it. So those of you who are watching, just stay tuned for that if you're into Miku. But right now I'm just putting together the Tuxedo Sam one, the same thing as before, and then starting to do the question mark blanket stitch question mark all the way around, and just going through stitching, it getting knotted a million times, you know the drill. But this one was the quickest to do, obviously, because it is the most simple, and I did really rush. You'll see how uneven this one turns out at the end, but I'm just going through and stitching that up. And not doing it in frame because I'm stupid. Alright, and I'm gonna cut back to past me to give you an outro. Ignore the change in appearance, but I finally finished the wallet. It was a bad paint day today, so that's why my video was filmed in my bed instead of in the office. But I finished them, so here is the first one I made. I used kind of like the lesbian flag color palette, made a little frog, buttons. This one is all very stiff felt. Then I made a Twilight one. This one, as well as the Sam one, is less stiff, but I made it with her cutie mark and basically just did her color scheme. I like that one a lot. And then I made a Tuxedo Sam. Overall, I really like doing this art project. Again, the people I got inspiration from will be linked below. So, if you liked it, subscribe. If you didn't like it, don't subscribe. You know, more videos to come. Mwah.